Hey there guitar players, in this video I want to talk to you about learning scales. Scales are a real bugbear for a lot of you out there and they really don't need to be. So what we want to talk about are some of the common pain points around scales and then actually using them in order to make a solo. Okay, so common pain points around scales. Well, a lot of guitar players out there just find them really boring to learn in the first place. But if you can adopt a mindset of just pushing through a pain barrier and learning them, once you've learned them, you can use them. So a lot of guitar players will say to me things like, I can't use scales worth a damn. And I'm like, okay, well, show me shape 1 of A Dorian, or any, like, what would you say, like, if we were playing this chord, A minor 7, what are you going to use to solo around it? And then they'll go, well, I don't know. So first things first, I don't know what the appropriate scale is to fit the chord that they're playing over or the backing that they're playing over. So if we know that we're going to be playing over an A minor 7 backing, you might say that Dorian is the appropriate scale for you to be using. And here is one way that you can look at using the Dorian mode, or playing the Dorian mode, should I say. So this is what we call a caged shape, hence I've labelled it up as A Dorian position 1 E shape. Now if you don't know about the caged system, that is something that you potentially want to be learning all about. If you need more help, then you can see in this particular video here, go to the links that you see in the video or in my bio or anything like that. You can get a free session with me. We can talk about the cage system if you need to. So this is a caged shape, okay, for the Dorian mode. So if I play it through, it looks like this. Now what I also want to do is play this in context against a backing. So what I'm doing here, I'm using a piece of software that's called iReal Pro, and what that's going to do for us in the background here is just play me an A minor 7 chord to a drum and bass backing. So what I want to do is play this scale in context over the chord. It sounds like this. Here we go. I'm going to count myself in. 1, 2, and 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, a little bit quicker. That'll come out like this. 1, 2, and 1, 2, 3, 4. So first and foremost, before players can even begin to start using this stuff, you need to know it. And a lot of people overlook that part of learning the guitar. They don't learn their fretboard correctly, so therefore they've got these big holes. Now, what I just had on the screen there is a caged shape, but you could also be looking at using something that's called 3 notes per string. Now what that means is, if we are outlining, laying out on the guitar the scale in 3 notes per string, it is exactly what it says on the tin. So the diagram that you see underneath me now has 3 notes on every string. And that kind of system is very, very useful for more technical styles of playing. The thing is, with the cage system, it's much easier, if I scroll back up to that cage shape, it's much easier to see the other bit of information that's written on this page, which is the notes that live within the scale, or the intervals. So a couple of things that you ought to do. If I go back to the 3 notes per string shape, learning these shapes, how I would go about this is breaking that up in half. So what you want to do is play the bottom 3 strings, play up it and down it. Get that under your fingers. You can also see I'm doing this, I'm going 1, 2, 3 here. You could do it with 1, 3, 4, it's entirely up to you. But what I would do is play that bottom half against something like the chordal backing, like this. Okay? So then what I would do is learn the second half of the shapes of the top 3 strings. Something like that. So So then what I would do is I'd start playing that up and down. Okay, now finally, if you put that together, those two halves, and you push them together in a tripleted format, you'll get something that comes out like this against the backing track. 3, 4. And stop there. Okay. So that's one way of being able to learn the 3 notes per string system. What I would do about learning the caged shapes, if I just scroll back up to those for a moment. Personally, I would just run them. So like, rather than breaking it up into halves or anything like that, I would just run that all the way through as a straight 16th note. 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and then straight back down. So what you have to do is play up and down that enough, or just going through a chart like the one that I've got in front of me here, and just go up and down it enough so that you've got it fairly in your memory. You can also have a scale chart in front of you like the one that I've got here. But then what you would want to do against something like the chord is just play up and down it until you've got it under your fingers. Okay. So once you've got a scale nailed under your fingers, you can start doing stuff with it. Okay, so there's a couple of tips and techniques that I would use for getting the shape under your fingers. But getting the shape under your fingers is not really how you go about mastering scales, because once you can play the shape, the next thing that you would want to be able to do is start being able to use them. Okay, so here is a thing that's quite important with scales is you want to be able to align something like that with your minor pentatonic scale. So everyone knows the basic blues box, the minor pentatonic. So if you take a classic blues lick that you might already know, how you get out of that might be something like that. But what you would want to do if you brought in the Dorian sounds is that you can take some of these extra notes, like the 2nd or the 6th, and replace your blues idea just by adding those notes that don't live in with the minor pentatonics. Let's have a look at doing that. So here's the standard kind of idea. Now if I add in those modal notes, it'll sound like this. A couple more times. Or if you were just playing, what I'm doing there is something obviously that's a bit more shreddy, for want of a better term. But what I'm playing with that is I'm taking the shape and I'm using those extra notes to flesh out. That's like a pentatonic style. But now I can use those extra modal notes. To add extra notes or whatever from into your vocabulary that you're not using. So developing vocabulary that actually uses these shapes, that's very, very important. And when you're looking at your chord that you're playing against and all that stuff, one of the things that's really important, why I always put these things in my fretboard diagrams and stuff, is to actually understand the intervals that you've got within the shape. So when you're looking at your intervals, it's very, very important to know the formula of a scale. So the Dorian mode is root 2, flat 3, 4, 5, 6, that's a major 6, and then a flat 7. Now, if that doesn't mean anything to you as you're watching this video, it's basically there's some holes in your knowledge in terms of music theory. But what we're talking about is intervals relative to the chord. And what's a really, really good and important thing to do in terms of getting to a point where you can master these scales is understanding what each interval sounds like. Now, what I'm going to do so that we don't clash with the chord too much, I'm going to play from this root here and go up to the next root and listen to what all of the individual intervals sound like against the chord, okay? So when you're playing the root, that's by far and away the strongest note that you can play. Okay, so that just complements the chord perfectly. It sounds great. It's the tone that most people's solos or licks aim to finish on. But when we play the second, it's a nice colour tone, but you've got this suspended quality where the note sounds like it needs to go either there, which is the same note that we had over here, our root. It's sort of suspended. It feels like it's in limbo. It doesn't feel as finished. It doesn't feel as complete. That's because it's a note that's not in the chord. It's a colour tone. Now, when we go up to the third, that is your note that's telling you whether it's a major or a minor chord. So this is your minor third. Fourth, again, it's got a bit of a suspended quality, like our second. But on that string there, it's the third that's definitely the strongest tone, and it's because it's a note that's in the chord. Now, if we go up to the fifth is the next best note that you can play after the root. Okay, so that's a very stable tone. That's why they're in power chords. For anyone who doesn't know that, yeah, your fifth is in your power chord. Then we've got this major 6. Interesting colour tone, specifically Dorian, but again has that suspended quality that wants to go back to the 5th. Or we've got then on that string, we've got our flat 7. Fits because of course it's a note that's in the chord. In the chord itself we've got root, minor third, 5th, flat 7. But to me, the flat 7 still wants that microtonal bend and then to be sent back to your root over here. Okay, so root 2, flat 3, 4, 5, major 6, flat 7, root. By doing it, like going through the scale that way against the chord, we're actually hearing and understanding the intervals. Then if you're slowing down and not playing all of that stuff, you're actually being able to listen to the notes and understand what each characteristic sound of each note is. And then for yourself, you can decide on where you want to be playing, what the notes of rest are, which, well, to be honest, you don't necessarily get to decide what the notes of rest are. The notes of rest are going to be the chord tones. That stuff, root, minor third, 5th, flat 7, root. But then your 2nd and your 6th, they're going to be your additional colour tones, and your 4th as well. Going to the 4th there doesn't sound finished, but when you go to that root you sound like you've finished your lick. So the thing after that having gone through and decided and like sounded out all of the different intervals, is developing vocabulary that you're happy to play. So that could be licks. That's kind of like a lick. You could play lines. Or you can play runs. Depending on what kind of player you are. So runs are things that sort of blaze through the scale shape, like a shred kind of guitar player. Lines are more sort of jazz and fusion oriented, and licks are more sort of blues and melodic rock oriented and all that sort of thing. But when you devise for yourself the kind of vocabulary that you like that is shape based, you'll be able to go from shape to shape, being able to, because there's more than one shape. If you just go back quickly to this is just in the caged stuff alone, but there's 5 shapes of this one scale, and there'll be 5 shapes of any scale that move up and down the guitar neck. But if you've developed a knowledge of the intervals in each shape, finding out where the notes of rest are, where the colour tones are and all of that, then you can find out what licks and lines and vocabulary that you want in each shape. Then you have a shape-based system for understanding the guitar and moving around up and down the fretboard, where you could basically play that stuff over any kind of chord, any kind of progression, and then you would really have a good quality command and control of scales, rather than being in a situation where you are in an improvisational, a band jam night or something like that, and being left up on a stage looking like you don't know what to play. Or if you're with another guitar player and they go, right, I'm just going to play an A-7, what licks have you got? Rather than going, well, I don't know what to play. If you know the shapes, you know the interval structure within that shape, and then you've developed licks and lines of vocabulary for each shape, for all of the different chord types, of which really there are 6 main chord types that get used in Western music all the time, then you'd be able to play over basically almost anything. So there we go. Okay guys, if you've liked this video, please do give it a like, drop me a line in the comments if you want to ask me anything. By all means, if you are looking to take your playing further than you can with a video like this, go to the links that are in the description or the links in my bio, where you can get a free guitar class with me. We can look at diagnosing your problems and then seeing if we want to go further forward with any more lessons or anything like that. So go to all of those links, grab your free session, and I'll look forward to seeing you in another video sometime soon. Cheers guys, take care.